This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi Sai, don't go anywhere. Part 10 of the series on the Sefer Chasidim. This part is a very important part, and we're going to introduce it with a story. The story goes like this. So if you look in the Shem HaGdolim of the Chida, he brings down that he heard from Zakenim that anybody who reworks the manuscript of Rabbeinu Yerucham or the Baal HaItor, bad things will happen to them, or they're going to die young. Now, why? Because these Rishonim come from Olam de Iskasaya, the hidden realm, and they need to stay that way. So this is what's written in the Sefer the Chida. Now, if this is what the Chida writes, you got to be, don't take the chance. What are you getting yourself into trouble for? But on the other hand, if you have access to the manuscript and you can be Marbit's Torah, are you just going to refrain from it because of what it says over there? So anyway, there was a particular Talmid Chacham who had the opportunity to rewrite and rework the manuscript of, I believe, Rabbeinu Yerucham, and he came to Rabbi Vadia, and he told Rabbi Vadia, should I do it? Rabbi Vadia says, of course you should do it. You're mechuyev to do it. So he started to rework it, and sure enough, one child after the next was hospitalized, and certain things were happening. So he came back to Rabbi Vadia, he says, Rabbi, is this a good idea? And Rabbi Vadia said, are you scared? He said, yeah, you bet I'm scared. He said, what are you scared about? The Chida says anyone who... He says Rabbi Vadia, the Chida said he heard it from Zakenim. Those Zakenim he heard it from were wrong. Go write it. And he rewrote it, and now we have many, many, many volumes of Rabbeinu Yerucham, and Baruch Hashem, all of his children had an immediate recovery, and he was Zoichet V'Marbitz Torah. So what's Pshat in this story? Pshat in this story is, there's a concept when it comes to these types of things, that someone who's afraid has what to be afraid about, and someone who's not afraid has nothing to be afraid of. Meaning, someone who doesn't have full trust in Hashem, oh, you don't have full trust in Hashem? You're scared of outside forces? Okay, Hashem says, I'll leave you to the outside forces. But if you're not scared, if you're a man, and you have faith in me, and you say, look, it's not found in the Gemara, what do I have to be scared of? God runs the world, then you have nothing to be scared of. The name of this rule is man de kapad kaptinon, man de loy kapad loy kaptinon bade. If you're afraid, you have what to be afraid of. If you don't, and this is a rule by many of these types of supernatural ayin hara. In other words, if somebody sort of lives their life wholeheartedly with faith in Hashem and is not worried about these things, they don't have to be worried about these things. But someone who's always nervous about the dark cloud looming over their head from the yentelas who are always looking at them and supposedly talking about them, and people who are paranoid have what to be paranoid about. But people who are healthy have no reason to be afraid.
Roosevelt said the same thing.
We have nothing to fear?
But fear itself.
There you go. So Roosevelt actually heard an early recording of the shir. This is the second time I'm giving it, So I figured by now people forgot it already, Okay. Says the Heilige Chasam Sofer. Look at number 36. Mi sharoitza ledabek beben tuva, bachor v'toiv. Someone who wants to marry a good kid, a good bachar. Ela dechayish mashikos va'olam mishum shmois habachar machoisen v'shem imoy kshem imo shalom meshulches. Says Chasam Sofer. You know what I say about them? Man de loy kappa loy kaptinam ba'adei. Someone who doesn't care. There's nothing to care about. Uveprat ika kan zechus Torah. She's marrying a Talmid Chacham, and she has a zechus of Torah to protect them. Ta'afilu adbeis eli miskaper b'Torah gemilas chasadim. We know that the house of Eli, there was a decree that the house of Eli would die young, right? And yet the Gemara says with Limud HaTorah, they were able to extend their life. Certainly, this inyan, which is only at most an inyan, if the person is a Talmid Chacham, it's something that will protect. Says the Chasam Sofer, by the way, this concern is not found in the Sefer Chasidim, except for in Siman Taf Ayin Zayin, Sham Nemedol Yisu Ava Ben Ben Shloisha Noshim Shema Shloishim Shabbos V'Sulay Nimsa Davar V'Zel Chibur Shebir Chasa Sham Nemedol Gvedu Mini Achrini. Chasam Sofer upholds the psak of the Chachmas Adam that it's only usher in 3 generations, but if it's 2 generations, it ain't a problem. So this is quite a bold psak. That when it comes to these type of things, taka, if you're a scaredy cat, you have a right to be a scaredy cat. And if you're a man, you have nothing to be scared of. So you say, so what do I do? Be a man. But I can't be a man. If you can't be a man, then you shouldn't be a man. But if you could be a man, then you should be a man. So in other words, it really... So what's the right answer? I guess the Chasam Sofer would say it depends who you are. If you're the kind of guy that runs around for every little skula dikazach because you're always afraid of these type of things, don't you dare violate the tzava Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid. But if you're a meat and potatoes guy, you're a shas and paiskim guy, and everybody said, but it's an ayin hara, and you say, it's a vaibish shazach. If that's your general attitude, then you have nothing to worry about. So it's certainly better to be the type of person who's not worried about these things. Because the less you're worried about them, the less you have to be. Yeah. It's always good to downplay these things. And we're going to see that's an important hashkafa in general. By the way, Rabbi Vadia says that even if you don't want to buy the svara of the Chachmas Adam, of man, of that it's only the Mishulashim, but certainly the svara of the Chasam Sofer is good svara. As we even pointed out, the Ravid, who is a great makubal, his father-in-law was the Ravid. You know that? The Ravid on the Rambam, his father-in-law was the Ravid. Can you imagine? There were probably someone who was saying a shtickle Torah at the table, someone was saying a Rambam, and then somebody said, but the Ravid argues! And they're looking at each other. Which one of us,
Father-in-law or father?
Exactly.
Did you say father-in-law or father?
Both. They were both the Ravid.
So what, going to knock
No.
on the son?
The son-in-law and the father. The Ravid's Shver was the Ravid. Okay? So...
There's Ravid 1 and Ravid 2.
And there's also Ravid 3, actually. But I don't think the Ravid 3 was related. So, Rabbi Sai... Now let's just do one more of this segment, and then maybe next week we'll finish up. But the question really arose, and the reason why Rabbi Vadia discussed this shaila is because in Egypt, where he was a rabbi for many years, it was pretty common that people would marry, girls would marry men the same name as their father, and men would marry women the same name as their mother, and it was rampant, and they didn't even know about the tzava Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid. It was not known. And part of the question is, should we stop the marriages? Should we even tell them about it? Or, ignorance is bliss. And as we're going to see, Rabbi Vadia was a big proponent not to educate people about the tzava of Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid, because if they're not going to listen, you're just causing them a lifetime of aggravation and worry. It's not necessary, but certainly not to...
The way he held, right? It was a very, very difficult circumstance to actually get to that point. He was Mako. It'd only be if they weren't the mothers of the third generation.
Again, he utilized...
No,
he didn't just use that svara, but that was definitely part of the equation. That was another, what we call a snif lahakel, was an added factor that he could be Mako. If you remember, one of the questions we had was from the Gemara in Yuma, the Gemara the Gemara in Brachas Mem Daled said there was a city in Eretz Yisrael called Gufnis, that there were 80 brothers Kohanim married to 80 sisters. So one of the answers given, the Shas Shulchan Yehuda said, but there's a medrash in Eicha Rabbah that says, Kulam talinu b'chada gufna, they're all hung. So, if anything, that shows that they suffered a difficult fate. Well, the Rebbe Vadia first, if you look at number 55 on the fourth line. right? Yeah, that some say Sham Hagirsa Kalalinu Bahada Gufna, meaning they all got married in one place called Gufna. So it doesn't mean they were all killed, but rather they were all married. Okay. Says Rabbi Vadia, therefore like this. It really depends the community that you come from. In a community that they're makbid on it, then taka, if you do it, it's more of an ayin hara. In other words, let's say you live in Williamsburg. I don't know that they're more makbid. Let's say you live over there. And there it's a big no-no. So even if it's not inherently a no-no, but you're just drawing attention to yourself. Everyone's going to look at the invitation, Yoel is married someone whose father, the shver is good. Everyone's like, "Whoa, what's going to be? Can you imagine?" And then it causes ayin har. But says Rabbi in Egypt, nobody knows anything like that. You could be soymech on the noid of Yehuda that it was only to his descendants, and especially according to the Chasam Sofer who says man de loy kapid loy kapdina bahadei, and says Rabbi, that's how I paskin.
So according to the Chasam Sofer, the bundle of kapid, right? If in Williamsburg, he knows everybody is kapid, but he's very self-confident. He's not kapid.
No, so Chasam Sofer is talking about, it doesn't matter about the community. It's talking about you yourself. If you're makbid...
You would say that you could do it.
Yeah, but Rabbi Vadia is utilizing the Chasam Sofer, but tempering it, that it depends on the community that you live in. So, let's do one more piece, and then we'll hold it off. And therefore, says Rabbi Vadia, coming back to, you know what? We'll hold it over here. Okay, so this will be part 10, which is the opinion of the Chasam Sofer, the man de loy kapad loy kapdina b'hadei. Okay.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.